Your own attorney reported you, Dad. His own lawyer. The man you hired, the man you paid $400 an hour to help you steal from your own son. He's the one who picked up the phone and called the state bar. And then he called me. That's what I said to my father on a Thursday evening in March, standing in the kitchen of the house my mother left me, the house he tried to give away while I was sleeping. He stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language, like the words didn't compute, like somehow, after everything he'd done, he still expected me to be the one apologizing. Let me back up. Because this story deserves context, and honestly, it deserves to be told properly, because I spent 3 years wondering if I was the crazy one. Spoiler, I wasn't. My name is Marcus. I'm 31 years old, and I work as a civil engineer for a mid-size infrastructure firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I make about $87,000 a year before taxes, which isn't glamorous, but it's honest money, and I earned every cent of it through student loans I'm still paying off, internships that paid barely enough to cover gas, and a lot of years where ramen wasn't a lifestyle choice, it was the budget. I'm the kind of guy who checks his bank account before ordering appetizers. I tip well, I file my taxes early, and I return shopping carts. I say that not to brag, but because you need to understand who I am before I tell you what my father tried to do to me. My mom, Linda, was the best person I've ever known. She was a high school English teacher for 26 years. She drove a Honda Civic until the odometer broke at 230,000 miles. She packed my lunch every single day through high school, and she wrote little notes on the napkins. Corny stuff like, "You're going to do great things," and "Don't forget to be kind." I kept every single one. I have a shoebox full of them in my closet. She was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer when I was 22, 3 months after I graduated from NC State. She fought it for 14 months. She was brave and stubborn and funny even at the end, cracking jokes about hospital food while hooked up to machines that beeped every 6 seconds. She passed away on a Sunday morning in October. I was holding her hand. My dad was in the hallway on his phone. I didn't know who he was talking to at the time. I found out later. Mom left me the house. It was in her name. She'd inherited it from her parents, my grandparents, who built it in 1974. A 3-bedroom, 2-bath colonial on a 1/4-acre lot in a neighborhood that had gone from modest to desirable over the decades. At the time of her death, it was worth around $310,000. She put it in a living trust with me as the sole beneficiary. She told me about it during one of her last lucid conversations. "That house is yours, Marcus. It's always been yours. Don't let anyone take it from you." I promised her I wouldn't. My dad, Richard, is 63 now. He was a decent father when I was growing up. Not warm, not cold, just present. He showed up to my baseball games. He grilled burgers on the 4th of July. He wasn't the kind of dad who said "I love you" out loud, but I assumed he felt it. I assumed a lot of things about my father that turned out to be wrong. He started dating Vanessa 11 months after Mom died. 11 months. I remember because I was still wearing my mum's watch every day, still couldn't open her bedroom closet without crying, and my dad was posting photos from a wine bar in Asheville with a woman whose Instagram bio said, "Living my best life," in pink cursive font. Vanessa was 44, worked part-time at a boutique furniture store, and had a daughter named Kendra who was 25 at the time. Kendra. Let me tell you about Kendra, because she's central to everything that happened. Kendra was the kind of person who posted inspirational quotes about hustle culture while being unemployed for 3 consecutive years. She had a degree in communications from a school I'd never heard of, which is fine, not everyone needs a big-name university, but she'd never held a job longer than 5 months. She bounced between barista gigs, a brief stint as a social media manager for a friend's candle company, and what she described as consulting. When I asked her what kind of consulting, she said, "Lifestyle optimization." I'm still not sure what that means. She drove a leased BMW 3 Series that her mother co-signed. She wore designer sunglasses and carried bags with logos on them, but she couldn't pay her phone bill without Vanessa bailing her out. She owed $34,800 in credit card debt across 4 cards, which I found out about much later. She was the kind of person who ordered a $19 avocado toast and then Venmo requested you for her share of the Uber. My dad married Vanessa 2 years after Mom passed. I went to the wedding, I wore a suit, I smiled in the photos. I even gave a toast, because that's what you do when you're trying to keep the peace. Inside, I felt like I was betraying my mother, but I told myself she'd want me to be supportive. She always wanted me to be kind. After the wedding, Dad and Vanessa moved into Vanessa's condo across town. My mum's house, my house, sat there, and I moved into it full time. I'd been renting an apartment near work, but the house was closer to the office, and more importantly, it was home. I spent $22,000 of my savings renovating the kitchen and bathrooms. I replaced the roof for $14,500. I repainted every room. I maintained the yard, fixed the plumbing, replaced the water heater. I poured myself into that house because it was the last thing my mother gave me, and I wanted to honor it. For about 2 years, things were relatively stable. Dad and I had dinner once a month. Vanessa was polite but distant, which I preferred. Kendra floated in and out of the picture, usually showing up when she needed something. A ride from the airport, help moving apartments again, someone to complain to about her latest ex-boyfriend. I tolerated her because she was technically family now, and I was trying. The trouble started at Thanksgiving 3 years ago. We were all at Dad and Vanessa's condo, me, Dad, Vanessa, Kendra, and Vanessa's sister Diane. The food was good. Vanessa made a surprisingly decent turkey. We were sitting around the table, and Kendra started talking about how she wanted to finally settle down and stop renting. She was 28 by then, still unemployed, but she'd started doing some kind of online reselling, buying clothes from thrift stores and selling them on Poshmark. She made maybe $600 a month from it, which she described as her 6-figure pipeline. "I've been looking at houses," Kendra said, scrolling through Zillow on her phone at the dinner table. "But everything's so expensive. I don't know how anyone affords anything anymore." Vanessa nodded sympathetically. "It's terrible out there, baby. The market is just brutal." Then my dad said something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. He said, "Well, there are always options. Sometimes family can help." He looked at me when he said it. Just a quick glance, maybe half a second, but I caught it. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. I didn't respond. I just took another bite of mashed potatoes and changed the subject to football. But the seed was planted. And over the next few months, the hints became less subtle. Vanessa started calling me more often, which was unusual. She'd ask how I was doing, how work was going, and then casually slip in comments about the house. "That's such a big house for just one person, Marcus. Do you ever think about downsizing? You know, property taxes in that neighborhood have really gone up." Each comment was wrapped in a smile and delivered with the tone of someone who was just making conversation. But I could hear the agenda underneath. Then came the dinner in February. Dad invited me over on a Saturday night. Just the 4 of us, me, Dad, Vanessa, and Kendra. Vanessa made lasagna. Kendra was wearing a new outfit, with the tag still on it, which I noticed because the price tag was sticking out of her collar, $185 for a blouse, and she'd been complaining about not being able to afford groceries the week before. After dinner, Dad poured himself a whiskey, Maker's Mark, neat, his usual, and sat down in the living room. He had that look on his face, the serious look, the look he used to get before telling me I was grounded. "Marcus," he said, "we need to talk about the house." I set my glass down. "What about it?" "Kendra needs a place to live. A real place. She's been bouncing around apartments for years, and she deserves some stability." "Okay," I said slowly, "what does that have to do with my house?" Vanessa leaned forward. "Well, you're single, Marcus. You don't have a family yet. That's a 3-bedroom house. Kendra could really use the space." I looked at my dad. "Are you asking me to give my house to Kendra?" "Not give," he said quickly. "Just transfer. Put her name on the deed. She could pay you back over time." "Pay me back," I repeated. "The house is worth $380,000 now, Dad. Kendra makes $600 a month selling used jeans online. How exactly would she pay me back?" "Don't be like that," Vanessa said, her voice hardening. "We're family." "That house was Mum's," I said. "She left it to me. It's mine." The room went quiet. Kendra was staring at her phone, pretending not to listen. Dad was looking at the floor. Vanessa's jaw was set tight. "Your mother would have wanted you to share," Dad said softly. I stood up. "Don't tell me what my mother would have wanted. You were in the hallway on your phone when she died." I left. I drove home in silence. I sat in the driveway for 20 minutes, staring at the front door of my house, my mother's house, and I cried. Not because I was sad, but because I was furious. Furious that my father had the audacity to use my dead mother's memory to guilt me into handing over her legacy to a woman who couldn't hold a job at a coffee shop. I thought that was the end of it. I thought I'd made myself clear. I thought my father had enough basic decency to respect a boundary. I was wrong. For the next several weeks, I didn't hear much from Dad. He sent a few texts. "Hope you're doing well. Let's grab lunch soon." But nothing about the house. I started to relax. I figured the message had landed. I went back to my routine: work, gym, weekend projects on the house. I was building a deck in the backyard, and I'd just finished staining it. Cedar, 3 coats, beautiful warm color. Mom would have loved it. Then in late April, I got a piece of mail that changed everything. It was from the Mecklenburg County Register of Deeds, a certified copy of a quitclaim deed, dated March 15th, transferring ownership of my property to Kendra Michelle Vaughn. My signature was on it, except it wasn't my signature. It was close. Someone had clearly studied my handwriting, but the capital M was wrong. I always loop the bottom of my M to the right. This one looped left, and the notary stamp was from a notary public I'd never heard of, in a town 40 minutes away that I'd never visited. My hands were shaking. I read the document 3 times. I flipped it over, looking for something, anything, that would make it make sense. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my ears. Someone had forged my signature to steal my house, and there was only one person who would do that. I called my dad immediately. It went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I called Vanessa. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Marcus, how are you, sweetie?" "Vanessa, I just received a deed transfer document from the county. It has my forged signature on it. Do you know anything about this?" Silence. A long silence. Then, "I don't know what you're talking about." "A quitclaim deed transferring my house to Kendra. Signed with a fake version of my signature. Notarized by someone I've never met. Filed with the county 3 weeks ago. Tell me you don't know anything about this, Vanessa." More silence. Then she said, "You should talk to your father," and hung up. I drove to their condo. Vanessa opened the door and tried to stop me from coming in, but I pushed past her, not roughly, just firmly, and found my dad sitting at the kitchen table. He was pale. He knew. "Did you forge my signature?" I asked. He didn't deny it. He didn't even try to deny it. What he said was worse. "It's just a house, Marcus. Don't be selfish. Kendra needs it more than you do." "It's just a house," I repeated. "Just a house. Mom died and left me that house. I've spent $40,000 maintaining it. I live there. It's my home. And you forged my signature to steal it." "I didn't steal anything. I just moved things around. You can get another place." "Moved things around?" "Dad, you committed a felony, forging a signature on a legal document and filing it with the county. That's forgery, fraud, and attempted theft of property. Do you understand that?" He waved his hand dismissively. "You're overreacting. Nobody's going to jail over a piece of paper." "We'll see about that." I left. I went home. To my house, the house that was still legally mine because a forged deed is void on its face. And I did 3 things. First, I opened a bottle of the good bourbon, the one I'd been saving for a special occasion. Second, I called my best friend Tyler, who's a paralegal. Third, I took photos of every page of that fraudulent document. Tyler answered on the 1st ring. "What's wrong? You never call this late." "My dad forged my signature to transfer my house to his stepdaughter." "He did what?" I explained everything. Tyler was quiet for about 10 seconds, then said, "Marcus, you need a real estate attorney, and you need one tomorrow. This is serious. This isn't just a family dispute. This is criminal." The next morning at 8:15, I was sitting in the office of Diana Reeves Eskimers, a real estate attorney in uptown Charlotte with 22 years of experience and a reputation for being absolutely ruthless. She wore a navy blue blazer and reading glasses, and she looked at the forged deed the way a surgeon looks at an X-ray. Calm, clinical, already diagnosing the problem. "The forgery is actually quite poor," she said, holding it up to the light. "The notary stamp has inconsistencies. The signature doesn't match your verified samples, and the witness section is incomplete. Whoever did this was either very arrogant or very stupid. Possibly both. That describes my father pretty well, I said. She didn't laugh, but her mouth twitched. Here's what we're going to do. First, I'm going to file a motion to void this deed. That's the easy part. A forged deed has no legal standing. Second, I'm going to refer this to the district attorney's office because what your father did is a Class H felony under North Carolina law. Third, I'm going to contact the notary who stamped this document because either they were complicit or someone used their stamp without authorization, and either way, they're in trouble. How long will this take? The deed will be voided within weeks. The criminal investigation could take months. But Marcus, your house is safe. A forged document can't transfer property. It's void ab initio. From the beginning, I felt like I could breathe for the first time in 24 hours. Now here's where the story takes a turn I didn't expect. Because what I didn't know, what nobody told me, what I only found out weeks later, was that my father had used an actual attorney to prepare the documents. Not Diana Reeves, obviously. He'd gone to a lawyer named Gerald Patterson, a semi-retired attorney with a small practice in Gastonia, about 40 minutes from Charlotte. My dad had walked into Gerald's office and told him that he needed help transferring a property to his stepdaughter. He told Gerald that his son, me, had agreed to the transfer but was too busy to come in and sign the papers. He said he had my power of attorney. He didn't. He said I'd given verbal consent. I hadn't. And then, right there in Gerald's office, he signed my name on the quitclaim deed. Gerald Patterson was 67 years old and had been practicing law for 41 years. He'd seen a lot. And something about Richard's story didn't sit right with him. The nervousness, the insistence on speed, the fact that the supposed owner of the property wasn't present and hadn't sent so much as an email confirming the transfer. Gerald notarized the document because my father pressured him, but that night he couldn't sleep. 2 days later, Gerald Patterson did something that my father never anticipated. He called the North Carolina State Bar and reported his own client for suspected fraud. Then he called me. I was at work when my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. I'm glad I did. Is this Marcus Holloway? Yes. Who's this? My name is Gerald Patterson. I'm an attorney in Gastonia. Your father came to my office last week and asked me to prepare a property transfer document. He signed your name in front of me. He told me you'd authorized it, but I have reason to believe that's not true. My blood went cold. It's not true. I never authorized anything. I suspected as much. I've already reported this to the State Bar, and I'm prepared to cooperate fully with any investigation. I also want you to know that I've preserved all records of the interaction, my notes, the document, my communications with your father, everything. I should have refused to notarize it. That's on me. But I want to make this right. I sat in my car in the parking lot at work for 15 minutes after that call, just processing. My father's own lawyer, the man he hired to help him commit fraud, had turned him in. Not because anyone forced him to. Not because he got caught. Because he knew it was wrong. Can you imagine? My father couldn't find a single person willing to go along with his scheme. Even the one person he was paying to help him said no. That tells you everything you need to know about what he did. I called Diana Reeves and told her about Gerald's call. She was thrilled, in the restrained, professional way that attorneys get thrilled, which is basically a slightly faster blink rate. This is extremely helpful, she said. An attorney witness who's willing to testify that your father forged the signature in his presence. Your father essentially created his own star witness against himself. Within 3 days, Diana had filed the motion to void the deed, submitted Gerald's statement to the court, and forwarded everything to the Mecklenburg County District Attorney's Office. She also filed a complaint with the North Carolina Secretary of State against the notary, who turned out to be a friend of Vanessa's who had provided her stamp without being present for the signing, which is its own separate crime. The deed was voided in 11 days. 11 days. The judge didn't even require a hearing. The evidence was so overwhelming that he issued the order on the papers alone. But my father didn't stop. He doubled down. Because that's what people like him do. They don't retreat, they escalate. 3 days after the deed was voided, I came home from work to find Kendra sitting on my porch. She was wearing yoga pants and a crop top, drinking an iced coffee, and scrolling through her phone like she lived there. There were 2 suitcases next to her. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "Moving in," she said, not even looking up. "Dad said I could have the guest room until the legal stuff gets sorted out." My dad said you could move into my house. He said it was temporary." "Kendra, you're not moving in. Your mother's friend helped forge a document to steal this house from me. You are the last person on earth who's living here. Get your suitcases and leave." She looked up then, and her eyes were hard. "You know, you've always been selfish, Marcus. Your dad told me. He said your mom spoiled you, and that's why you can't share." That one hurt. I won't pretend it didn't. Hearing someone throw my mother's memory at me like a weapon, it cut deep. But I've learned something over the past few years. The people who weaponize your dead parents against you are telling you everything you need to know about themselves. "Leave," I said, "now, or I'm calling the police." She left, but not before taking a photo of herself crying on the porch and posting it to Instagram with the caption, "When your own family treats you like garbage, homeless because of one man's greed. Family first heartbroken, pray for me." The post got 847 likes. 847 people saw a cropped version of reality and decided I was the villain. Some of Vanessa's friends started commenting on my Facebook posts. People I'd never met calling me selfish, heartless, saying I should be ashamed. One person wrote, "Your mother would be disgusted." I blocked 17 people that week, but the social media campaign was just the opening salvo. Over the next 2 weeks, things escalated in ways I couldn't have predicted. First, Vanessa called my employer. She actually called the main office of my engineering firm and asked to speak with my supervisor. She told him that I was involved in a legal dispute and that I was unstable and potentially dangerous. My supervisor, a 60-year-old former Army engineer named Bill Prescott, listened politely, then called me into his office and told me what she'd said. He also told me not to worry about it. "Sounds like family drama," he said. "I judge you by your work, and your work is excellent. But you might want to get ahead of this with HR just in case." I did. I filed a preemptive statement with HR and included a copy of the police report. Then my dad tried to change the locks on my house. I'm not making this up. On a Wednesday afternoon while I was at work, my father drove to my house, called a locksmith, and tried to have all the locks changed. The locksmith, a guy named Danny who'd been doing this for 20 years, asked to see proof of ownership. My dad showed him the voided quitclaim deed, which still had his stepdaughter's name on it. Danny looked at the document, looked at my dad and said, "Sir, this document has void stamped across it in red letters. I can't change these locks." My dad argued. Danny refused. My dad threatened to call another locksmith. Danny said, "Go ahead, but I'm calling the homeowner first." He had my number because I'd hired him 2 years earlier to install a deadbolt on the back door. He called me, told me what was happening, and I called the police from my desk at work. When the police arrived, my dad was still in the driveway arguing with Danny. The officers took statements from both of them, reviewed the voided deed, and told my father to leave the property immediately. They also noted the incident in their report, which Diana later added to the growing case file. 2 days after the locksmith incident, Vanessa filed a complaint with the city's code enforcement office, claiming my house had multiple safety violations, exposed wiring, structural damage, mold. A city inspector showed up at my door on a Monday morning. I let him in, gave him the full tour, and watched his face as he checked every room. The house was immaculate. I'd just had the electrical panel upgraded 6 months earlier. The inspector found 0 violations and told me the complaint appeared to be unfounded and possibly retaliatory. He noted that in his report too. Then came the worst one. Vanessa's sister, Diane, the one who'd been at that Thanksgiving dinner, went on Facebook and wrote a 1,200-word post accusing me of elder abuse against my father. She said I was withholding family property and psychologically torturing my dad. She tagged local news outlets, community groups, and even a city councilwoman. The post was shared 340 times. I read it sitting on my deck, the one I'd built with my own hands, the cedar one, 3 coats of stain. And I felt something shift inside me. I'd been patient. I'd been reasonable. I'd been the bigger person at every single turn. But enough was enough. I called Diana Reeves. I want to file a defamation claim against Diane. I want to file harassment charges against Vanessa. And I want to know where the criminal case against my father stands. Diana's response was calm and methodical, as always. The DA's office has completed their investigation. Your father is being charged with felony forgery and attempted fraud. He'll be arrested within the week. As for Vanessa and Diane, I'll draft cease and desist letters today. If they don't stop, we'll file civil suits. And Marcus, I'm also going to recommend we look into whether Vanessa conspired with your father on the forgery, because the notary's involvement suggests this was coordinated. The arrest happened on a Friday. Not a dramatic, cinematic arrest with SWAT teams and helicopters. Just 2 detectives showing up at my dad's condo at 9:30 in the morning and explaining that he was being charged with 1 count of felony forgery and 1 count of felony attempted fraud. He was processed, fingerprinted, and released on $15,000 bail that Vanessa paid using a cash advance on her credit card, $15,000 at 24.99% interest. I know this because it came out later in the financial disclosures. My dad called me from the condo that afternoon. His voice was different, smaller. Marcus, please, you have to drop the charges. I can't drop them, Dad. The state is pressing charges. It's out of my hands. This is going to ruin my life. You ruined it yourself. When you walked into that lawyer's office and signed my name on a document to steal my house, you did that, not me. I was just trying to help Kendra by committing a felony against your own son. She needed a place to live. She needed a job, Dad. She needed to grow up. And you needed to be a father to me instead of a bank for your wife's daughter. He started crying. I'm not going to pretend that didn't affect me. Hearing your father cry is one of the most uncomfortable sounds in the world, no matter what he's done. But I held firm because I'd learned something that my mother tried to teach me a long time ago. Loving someone doesn't mean letting them destroy you. I'm sorry, he said. I know you are, but sorry doesn't undo a felony. The fallout came in waves over the next 3 months, and each wave was more devastating than the last. First, the notary, Vanessa's friend, a woman named Brenda, was charged with notary fraud. She cooperated immediately and gave a full statement to investigators. She confirmed that Vanessa had asked her to provide the notary stamp, that she was never present for the signing, and that she'd been told it was just a formality, and everyone agreed. She was disbarred as a notary and faced a misdemeanor charge. In her statement, she also confirmed that the entire plan was Vanessa's idea. Not my dad's, Vanessa's. That revelation hit me harder than I expected. My dad was a lot of things: weak, conflict-averse, easily manipulated. But the forgery scheme hadn't even been his idea. His wife had concocted it, recruited her friend to notarize it, and sent my father into a lawyer's office to execute it. He was the instrument, but she was the architect. Vanessa was subsequently charged with conspiracy to commit fraud. She was arrested on a Tuesday morning while leaving a Pilates class. I didn't witness it, but Diane described it in a panicked phone call to someone who screenshot the conversation and sent it to me. They handcuffed her in the parking lot in her yoga pants, the text said. This is insane. No, Vanessa. What was insane was thinking you could forge someone's signature, file fraudulent documents with the county, and face no consequences because you smiled sweetly and called it family. Gerald Patterson, the attorney who reported my father, became a key witness for the prosecution. He testified in a deposition that my father was visibly nervous and evasive during their meeting, that he produced no written authorization from me, and that when Gerald asked if I could come in to sign the documents myself, my father said, "He's too busy. He trusts me to handle it." Gerald also testified that he felt professionally and morally obligated to report the incident. He voluntarily surrendered his notary commission and accepted a reprimand from the state bar for notarizing a document he had doubts about. He called it the worst professional judgment of my career. The legal proceedings took 7 months. My father pleaded guilty to 1 count of felony forgery in exchange for the fraud charge being dropped. He was sentenced to 18 months of probation, 200 hours of community service, and ordered to pay $8,500 in restitution for my legal fees. He was also required to attend a financial crimes education program. 12 weeks of classes about property law, fraud, and ethical boundaries. The irony of my 63-year-old father sitting in a classroom learning why you shouldn't forge your son's signature was not lost on me. Vanessa pleaded no contest to conspiracy and received 12 months of probation and 150 hours of community service. As part of her plea deal, she was required to delete all social media posts related to the incident, issue a written apology to me, which I received and which was clearly drafted by her attorney because it contained words Vanessa would never use, like unconscionable and forthwith, and she was barred from contacting me directly for the duration of her probation. Brenda, the notary, pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor, paid a $2,000 fine, and permanently lost her notary commission. And Kendra was never charged with anything because technically she hadn't committed a crime. She didn't forge anything, didn't file anything, didn't participate in the fraud directly. But she knew about it. She showed up at my house with suitcases because she knew the house was supposed to be hers. She never once said, "This is wrong." She never once called me and said, "Marcus, I think our parents are doing something illegal." She just waited for the house to fall into her lap like it was owed to her. After the legal proceedings concluded, I did something I'd been putting off. I had a full property appraisal done. The house was now worth $425,000 thanks to my renovations and the continued growth of the Charlotte market. I sat at the kitchen table, the same kitchen I'd renovated with my own money, and looked at that number, $425,000. That's what my father tried to steal from me. That's what Vanessa thought she could take with a forged signature and a smile. The family divided cleanly. Dad's brother, my Uncle Jim, called me the day after the arrest and said, "Marcus, I want you to know that what your father did was unforgivable, and I'm on your side." Uncle Jim and his wife, Aunt Carol, have been over for dinner twice since then. We eat on the deck I built, and Uncle Jim always says the same thing. "Your mother would be proud of this place." That means more to me than he'll ever know. Dad's sister, my Aunt Patricia, sent me a letter, a handwritten letter 3 pages long, apologizing for not seeing what Vanessa was doing sooner. She said she'd noticed red flags but hadn't wanted to create drama. She ended the letter with, "You handled this with more grace than anyone in this family deserved. You are your mother's son." I framed that letter. It hangs in the hallway next to a photo of Mom on the porch of this house, taken the summer before she got sick. She's wearing a sun hat and holding a glass of lemonade and squinting into the camera with that half smile she always had. Every time I walk past it, I stop for a second. Just a second. My dad and I don't talk anymore. I didn't make a dramatic declaration about cutting him off. There was no final confrontation, no closing monologue. I just stopped calling. He stopped calling too, eventually. The last text I got from him was 3 months ago. "I hope you're doing okay. I miss you." I read it. I didn't respond. Maybe I will someday, maybe I won't. I don't know yet. What I know is that I'm not ready, and I'm not going to force myself to be. Kendra eventually moved to Raleigh. I heard through the grapevine, Aunt Patricia specifically, that she got a job as an administrative assistant at a real estate office. Entry level, $32,000 a year. She's apparently paying off her credit card debt on a structured plan. I don't wish her harm. I don't wish her well either. I just don't think about her much anymore. Vanessa and my dad are still married, as far as I know. I sometimes wonder if they sit in that condo and talk about what happened. I wonder if Vanessa still thinks she was right. I wonder if my dad misses me, or if he just misses the version of me that would have said yes. I had the house painted last spring, a warm grey with white trim and a dark green door, colours Mom would have chosen. I planted hydrangeas along the front walk because she always wanted them but never got around to it. In the backyard, next to the cedar deck, I put a small garden. Tomatoes, basil, bell peppers. I'm not a great gardener, but I'm learning. On the anniversary of Mum's death last October, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee and read one of her napkin notes. This one said, "The right thing and the easy thing are almost never the same thing." She wrote that when I was 16. I don't think she knew how true it would become. People sometimes ask me if I regret pressing charges against my own father. They ask it carefully, the way you ask someone about a scar, with a mix of curiosity and sympathy, and I always tell them the same thing. No, I don't regret it. Not for a single second. Because here's what I've learned. Family is not a license to steal from you. Being related to someone does not entitle them to your property, your peace, or your self-respect. Love is not an obligation to be exploited. And forgiveness, real forgiveness, not the performative kind that people demand of you so they can feel comfortable. Forgiveness is something you earn, not with words, not with tears, with changed behavior, sustained over time, with no expectation of reward. My dad hasn't earned it yet. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. But this house is mine. It was my mother's before me and her parents before her. It has been in my family since 1974. Nobody, not my father, not his wife, not her daughter, not a forged signature, not a fake notary stamp, is ever going to take it from me. I promised my mom, and I keep my promises. Some people hear this story and say, "That's so sad." And they're right, it is sad. It's sad that a father chose his new wife's agenda over his own son. It's sad that a grown woman thought she could just take someone's home. It's sad that any of this happened at all. But here's the thing about sad stories. They don't have to end sadly. I'm sitting on my porch right now, writing this. The hydrangeas are blooming. The deck still smells faintly of cedar when the sun hits it. There's a cardinal in the oak tree, the same oak tree that's been there since my grandparents built this place 52 years ago. I've got a cup of coffee, a house that's paid for, and a clear conscience. And his own lawyer reported him. Some stories write their own ending. This one did.